The goal with that was to learn how to function like this, since it looks like this is kind of a long-term-ish, well, long, short-term thing in my life. And she gave me a few tools, like these little grippers so I can open jars by myself. And she was doing sorts of measure tests like the squeeze and the grip test, and then the speed of moving little pegs and all sorts of little things. And as I was getting measured, my progress, it was improving a little bit each time. There was measurable improvement.
Before we begin, I want to share something special with all of you expecting parents out there. As an internationally board certified lactation consultant, I've seen firsthand how a little planning can go a long way to helping you achieve your baby feeding goals. That's why I'm offering you my free ebook. It's called Birth Practices to Support Breastfeeding, and it's a workbook. So check out the link in the description below. You are having this motion-induced inflammation in the wrists or carpal tunnel, and then you're having the severe inflammation in your breast, creating the clogged ducts, which those have to be related. You know, the fact that your body was so inflamed in both places, it would make sense that you would need to find positions that allowed her to be completely relaxed without being supported by you. And so I can understand why both side lying and laid back breastfeeding were a lot easier for you.
Yeah, I'm glad I finally got that, because I was trying all along, because I read about them thinking, like, this would be good if it worked.
I know, but it's really hard. It's one of those things, you watch the video and then you think, okay, I should be able to do this. And when you try, because you've never done it, you've never seen it in person, your first time practicing is when you have this hungry little baby. It's really hard to get it right. And that's one of the things I'll do with my clients, is make sure I help them to learn how to do a few different positions so that they don't have to rely on just one position all the time.
Yeah, because that will overtax your arms so much.
Yeah. And your head and your neck and your shoulders. But you were talking about other providers that you saw as well. How many total providers do you think you saw trying to get the inflammation to a
I
point where it was reasonable?
I don't know, and I don't know that the journey is over yet, 'cause,
Right.
it's a lot better in a lot of ways now, but I still get flare-ups, especially with the weather fluctuations. And they mentioned, at the osteopath office, they mentioned that I'm now going for frequency-specific microcurrent therapy as well, and they mentioned that,
Mm.
yes, they have seen with the weather barometric pressure changes, a lot of people are coming into the office in high pain those weeks. Because when I'm like, "I was getting better, and now this week it feels like, I'm back to square one and I can't do anything again." They're like, "It's not just you, everyone is in humongous pain this week, it's the weather." And I asked, "Is it always gonna be like this whenever the weather changes?" And they said, "No, while you're still healing, but once you're fully healed, it won't be like this."
And what are they saying that you're healing from? The carpal tunnel itself or some other sort of inflammation that is causing the carpal tunnel?
So we do know eventually, I did get an MRI in November. The pain was just so great. It was to the point where I couldn't move my arm at all. Like, I woke up one morning and I couldn't bend my elbow and I couldn't rotate my wrist at all. It was completely locked up. I had already experienced the where my wrist hurt so much that if I did something, I would have shooting pain in the arm that came all the way up and was like blinding white pain, but that's just a quick flash. This day, I woke up and every time I took a step, the reverberation through my whole body would, jar my wrist, and I would see flashes of green behind my eyes. Like, I already knew I can't do things like unsnapped, so it's like her onesies, unsnapping them, that little reverb coming back really hurts, so I could not, change her if she was wearing snaps. I could only do zippers. When driving, the directionals clicker on the car, you know how, like, when you hit it, then it kind of has a little bounce back? That was massively painful. Nursing bras, I couldn't do the ones that snap open. I could only do the nighttime nursing bras, which is the pull down, and even sometimes that was hard with the bad hand. After that, I pushed for an MRI, and it turns out that there is a longitudinal split tear in this tendon in the wrist. And I had consulted the hand doctor again, the orthopedic surgeon, and he said, okay, well, at the time I couldn't even like put my thumb into my hand like this. I pretty much like could do this much. And he's like, yeah, it's the inflamed tendon. And they were trying to explain to me how the inflammation of the tendon is pulling that tear apart. And he said, what we need to do is just go in and snip the sheath and let the tendon be able to pass because that's what's causing the pain. And he's like, you shouldn't really be able to feel the tear. And for months, I had been trying to explain to all my providers, it feels like there is a shard in my arm, like a piece, like a needle, a metal needle in my arm. And every time I rotated it, it feels like it's shredding apart inside my arm. And nobody knew what I was saying or understood. And then the MRI confirmed that. And when they told me where the tendon was that had the longitudinal tear, I said, is it about here? And they said, yeah, that tendon kind of goes like this and then curls in here. And I'm like, so basically here with the slight difference at the end that it curls in at the tip, at the tail end there. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah, and you're pointing from your your wrist, the
from the
interior
base of the
part of your
thumb
wrist.
down that side of the
Uh,
forearm.
yeah. And I know that you are a musician and you use your fingers and your tendons and your wrist a lot in the
Yes.
instrument that you play. So you had probably had a lot of overuse of your wrists to begin
Yeah.
with.
So I'm
I'm guessing is it the left hand that you place your fingers on for the violin?
Yes, it is. But,
Okay.
I did see a massage therapist and, I was telling her the background of the and then she asked, "So what do you do for a profession?" I mentioned violin teacher, and she goes, "Oh, well, that's why." And I'm like, "Well, actually, I took a long maternity leave after my baby came, and then I haven't, like in getting some of my students back because during the maternity leave, I moved some of my older students on, the audition kids, to other teachers just because they couldn't be 3+ months without a teacher. And the ones that did come back, I wasn't teaching that much. And in teaching, I don't have to use my hand too much. So I wasn't doing a lot of demonstrating when it was hurting. So I really because I'd come down to just I was only teaching 3 students a week.
What I was thinking was not that it was as a result of your current teaching, but perhaps overuse over many, many years of having played the violin. So maybe your wrists were already primed once the inflammation began to have a reaction or be torn because they had been used so much for what you had done for so many years.
I mean, what's interesting is when I was playing and I was trying to determine does it hurt to play, thus when I moved the fingers, it didn't hurt this wrist. It was things that bent the wrist or definitely like the sideways, like bending the wrist up and down or even sideways was really painful. But actually playing because the wrist stays very stable and doesn't bend. I do notice now, like because this hand is down, I have to prioritize most actions with my right hand a lot. And when I use this one too much, I feel it in here too. Like this one's starting to go. So that wouldn't explain years of violin playing for it to be the right hand.
Because people do, this is something that does occur in the postpartum period. And most of the time, by a month after weaning, the symptoms resolve. I haven't heard of a case of somebody having torn their wrist. It seems like it's more going on than just inflammation as a result of lactation.
Yeah, and the hand doctor really wanted to do surgery just to snip the sheath, but I had had a trigger release surgery before on my thumb on the inside. It was like 10 years ago, and I remember the recovery on that was awful, and I was like, "I can't be 8 months to a year not being able to take care for my baby at all." And I talked with a friend of mine who's a doctor, and she said, "While your tendon is painful, it is functional right now." And then I mentioned I was doing FSM, and she goes, "Actually, that is the best course for you right now," and seeing the osteopath, and she's like, "Everything you're doing is on the right track." So, she confirmed what I thought, that the surgery wasn't going to help because the inflammation is not just here. It's at other places in my arm here. There are locked up tendons because the wrist was down. The other parts of my arm were compensating. I ended up with adhesions all up and down the arm. There's several hard locked up spots. Today at FSM, she was noting that I have had pain the last couple of days. I mean, of course, it's been rainy yesterday. So barometric pressure changes. It's both when the weather changes to rain and then rain changes back to sun. I have the pain. It's not just when it rains. It's like it's about to rain. If it stays rainy for a few days, it'll be status quo, and then once it gets sunny again, then again the change is what makes the pain. And they found again the really hard lump in the armpit area, and they worked on that today, and I can move my hand again. Like earlier this morning, I went to go wash my hands, and just the action of turning my hands was so painful, and it was making my wrist click, and it like locked up. It almost felt like my tendons were rolling.
And is the hard lump that they're feeling, is that a swollen lymph that they're feeling in the armpit? And they're needing to clear the lymph out?
I don't know. That's a big question. They just said hard lump. Like I think they're calling them adhesions, but I don't know. I wonder how much it's connected to that milk duct. Sometimes I wonder how much, like, as my milk ducts are filling up, are they pressing on things in my body that's preventing flow or blood flow to the wrist to heal it more? I don't know.
Well, the reason I'm asking that is because inflammation is the result of increased lymph to an area. So, for instance, mastitis, the reason why we need cold and non-steroidal anti-inflammatories is because the milk ducts get narrowed as a result of extra lymph coming to the breasts. So it's not the actual milk that is causing the plugged ducts. It is, but the larger areas of milk are because lymph comes to the breasts, it squeezes the milk ducts, and then that causes a backup of the
Yeah.
milk. And so what we have to do is get the lymph out of the breasts in order to make space for the milk to be able to come out. So we get the lymph out through ice, through anti-inflammatories, which gets the lymph back into the armpits where there are lymph nodes and back into the hips where there are lymph nodes. So the third thing I always add to that recipe is lymphatic drainage or lymphatic massage, which is a special type of massage which gets the lymph from the breast back into the lymph nodes. And then I'm wondering if the orthopedic was massaging the lymph nodes to get it back, throw it flowing through the body to get it out of the lymph nodes themselves.
It's a good question. I will ask at my next appointment if it is the lymph nodes, and I will look for someone who does lymphatic drainage massage because that if that helps, that would be great.
Yeah, and you can do it on yourself as well. There are if you YouTube has a great video by LA Lactation of a lymphatic drainage massage for the breasts, but I do think there are other lymphatic drainage massages. I am most familiar with that one because it's the one I use with my clients most frequently, but, I'm sure if you Googled lymphatic massage and didn't focus on lymphatic breast massage, that you would see other areas of the body that you could try to remove the lymph from. Yeah, I find it fascinating that and so hard, the swelling and tenderness was concurrently with the swollen breasts. Having the engorged or plugged ducts was happening at the same time that you were getting the engorgement or swelling of the wrists.
Yeah, and I do know it's connected because when I go for my treatments with the osteopath or at FSM therapy, when they're working on spots, I can feel little zings in my breast tissue where I feel like a lump is after she feeds that it doesn't go down, like there's just a remaining small hard lump, and I can feel a zing, and then I can feel a release and the letdown, and then, I can feel my nursing pad getting wetter, and I'm like, "Huh, I think they just cleared a blocked or a inflamed something there."
I think this is a treatment. It's like low level electrical currents. Is that what it is?
Like, I feel little tiny pulses in
Yeah.
spots where they hook up the little sticky pads on me.
Yeah. I feel like this is a treatment that some providers use to break up recurrent mastitis. but I'm not sure if it is the same treatment or not. Is it delivered almost through, like, an ultrasound?
They're like these little sticky
Um
pads that go on my wrist,
Oh, yeah,
and then
okay. Yeah, I've seen that, and is it painful while it's happening or it feels
yeah,
good?
sometimes I don't feel it all, and sometimes I just feel like these little, like, buzz, like, zap, zap, zap.
And so you've mentioned flare-ups. How regularly is your baseline has your baseline been painful, or is there a baseline that is actually back to normal, and then only during the flare-ups it's bad?
Yeah, baseline is now back to normal, except for yesterday and this morning with the weather fluctuation. Baseline was pain level 5. But baseline now is no pain unless I'm doing something, that twists my wrist or move my wrist in a weird way. Like, some things I know I cannot do. Certain things I cannot lift or they're gonna turn my hand. I know opening doorknobs are iffy for me right now. I did not know that closing my car door by just, like, at my fingers and just pushing it closed, that one I did not realize would pull on that tendon, and that one hurt a lot. I didn't realize things like just the other day, I didn't even think about it, but I just tucked my hair behind my ear on my left side, and I did not expect that to be a ridiculously shooting pain, like crazy pain, because I didn't realize that the wrist was kinda gonna go back, like, sideways like this. As it was getting better in the middle of the night once, I actually picked up a pillow and moved it, and I was like, "Hey, I just picked up that pillow without pain," because, like, just holding the weight of a pillow in the hand and the amount of weight that it would drag down or pull on that tendon, and I was like, "Hey, that was I could do that." Like, as it was getting better, there was things that I could do when I wasn't thinking about it that I'm like, "Hey, that's great," and then I'm at the point now where I can do most things except some things that I'm not thinking about, and I'm like, "Whoa, okay, I did not realize I cannot do that." But, I'm also at a place where my arm doesn't feel like it's on fire all the time, which that it was like that for months. So I know I'm on the healing end of it, and especially when I take the little quiz at the beginning of my appointments every few check-ins, like, that's like a score. Can you lift a bag of groceries? Does it prevent you from doing your normal days? Is it like, answering all those questions. My score is improving a little each time. And then I've also been doing occupational therapy. So the goal with that was to learn how to function like this since it looks like this is kind of a long-term-ish well, long, short-term thing in my life, like and she gave me a few tools, like these little grippers so I can open jars by myself, and she was doing sorts of measure tests like the squeeze, and the grip test, and then the speed of moving little pegs and all sorts of little things, and as I was getting measured, my progress, I was improving a little bit each time. There was measurable improvement, so I know I'm getting better.
And have they talked about, the association with breastfeeding at all, any of your providers, or has it seemed to them like it's just unknown onset?
So, some of them had mentioned that prolactin is a pro-inflammatory, but, like, they have no case. I'm like, "If you can show me one case of where somebody has what I have and it's because of breastfeeding." Like, some of them have encouraged me to stop breastfeeding, but my goal is to breastfeed to natural term, and my baby is allergic to dairy. So and I've already tried, almond milk, cashew milk, coconut milk, pea protein milk, pretty much all of them we've tried giving her just to see. And I know they don't have the full nutrition that she needs, but yeah, like, because my goal is to feed to natural term, it is the easiest way for me to comfort my baby. It's just I mean, if I don't feed her at night, she will then just wake up fully and we'll never go back to sleep. And, but if I feed her on first stir, then she goes right back down, and whenever she's crying or sad or hits her head or, falls or wants a toy that someone else took, like, just feeding her is sort of like it fixes everything. It's easy. It's
Yeah, I think when providers kind of nonchalantly tell a breastfeeding mom that she should stop breastfeeding in order to solve some other difficulty, they aren't recognizing how much of overall parenting breastfeeding can contribute to. Breastfeeding is about way more than providing nutrition to your baby. is how you comfort them and how you bond with them, and it's not the only way you can, but if a person
Yeah, like, I don't wanna cause anxiety in my child. I know that she comes to nursing whenever if she sees a strange face, if she meets a new person, she's immediately turning right around and signing milk and running towards me.
Yeah, and of course, there are people who do decide to wean for one reason or another, and they do find other ways to nurture their babies. Um, but when people are bringing weaning up as a suggested, um, treatment for any difficulty, whether it be a physical difficulty or a mental health difficulty, it needs to be brought up as an option, and the pros and cons need to be measured, in a thoughtful way and not just a blasé statement that weaning is going to solve their problems.
Yeah, I remember, like, because I am still feeding and it is an easy thing for me. I remember I was hanging out with a mom friend, we had a play date, and her child fell and he was crying, and in my mind, I was like, "Oh my gosh, what's she gonna do? She dried up months ago. How is she gonna comfort him?" And, my brain was like, "Ah, I knew what I would have done in that moment with my child," and then, she picked up her child and just gave him kisses, and then he was okay, and I was like, "Oh, that's what a mom
Mhm.
does
Right, right.
who's not still nursing." I was like,
Right.
"Cool."
Moms all over the world are nurturing their babies and toddlers regardless of how they feed, but that doesn't mean that the person who wants to nurture their baby through breastfeeding should have to stop to resolve, any issue that might come up, whether it's a surgery or a chronic illness or,
Yeah, and so
a medication.
I was being led to think that breastfeeding was the problem, but then at my last appointment a couple weeks ago, all of my pain so far has been on the left side. My left side has all sorts of problems. That the left side is the thumb that I had the trigger release hand surgery 10 years ago. It's also the side that I have a heel spur on my left foot, and it's also the side where I have FHL tendonitis in like my ball of foot near my toes. Um, so this breast was always having clogs, hard spots that weren't clearing and getting to soft again after a feed, whereas the right side was just behaving normally. And then one day, my right side was having those clogs and the hard spots and tissue that felt rubbery and no longer just like a normal breast. And I was like, oh man. And I went to my osteopath appointment and he's like, you have a lot of tightness and stuckness in your right rib cage and here and here and here. And I was like, oh my gosh, because that side has been presenting problems like the left side has been all this time. And so I'm now starting to think that a continued breastfeeding, it gives me the measure of how my health is doing. It's sort of like the canary that's telling me what's wrong because I'm still feeding my baby multiple times a day. I get that feedback of it's full, it's empty. This is what empty should feel like. Whereas on this side, it's full. I don't know. Did she get any out of here? Or it still feels like a rubber ball. Like what's going on? And when I pump too, like the good side is getting a, a lot, and the bad side is getting half or less than half, like maybe a third of what the good side is getting. And I do switch sides, but when I'm doing better and I have low wrist pain, less flare ups, no clicking in the tendon, and she's feeding, and this one doesn't end up completely rubbery, but only a couple of hard spots here and then. I'm getting very close to equal when I pump, or sometimes exactly equal. Because I am still pumping once a week. I go into work, I go into the office one day a week, so I pump when I'm there.
Yeah, it is really common for one side to produce a lot more than the other. And I think there's some studies that say in like 80% of breastfeeding women, one side produces more than the other.
Oh, interesting. My whole experience, they have produced out equal, except when this one has problems. This one only produces less when it has problems. And when it's not rubbery, then it's equal output as the other.
Yeah. And were you ever sized for phalanges?
Yes. One nipple is a little bit smaller than the other.
But you're using the sizes you got the flanges you got sized for, when you pump. Yeah, and do you notice that she prefers to nurse on one side over another?
Now, no, but in the beginning, we did wonder that if she had a side preference, and that's why we did bring her to the chiropractor and the osteopath to figure out any, um, what do they call it? Torticollis?
Torticollis, mhm. Yeah, to see if she and did she was she diagnosed with torticollis or just kinda worked on that tension in the neck and shoulders?
Just worked on the tension. I don't think she was diagnosed with it. They're like, I mean, maybe she feels a little bit tighter on the side, like, but it wasn't.
Yeah, and so tell me, the time of the onset of the carpal tunnel in relation to the age of your baby, and then when it started to finally feel a little bit better?
Carpal tunnel, the first time around with both hands and wrists, it was when she was 2.5 months old up till she was about 5 to 5.5 months old. And then
Okay.
the recurring only on the left side wrist was when she was a little over 8 months old.
And was there ever do they think it tore from just from use, almost like, a what are those called, like a hairline fracture in a bone? Or do they think there was a specific time when it tore and you just aren't able to identify it?
They think it's just overuse because with inflammation, they said an inflamed tendon would it just as it swells, then that could create the tear. At the time when the inflammation was really bad, my husband was remarking, "Hey, it looks like your wrist is pregnant." Like there was an actual bump out from my wrist. I mean, the whole wrist itself was swollen, but then just right at that de Quervain's tendonitis spot, it looked like an actual bump.
Wow, that is a lot. So, when you aren't able to move your wrists, that impacts so much of how you interact with your baby. And I know you said you went to PT to get some extra tools, but and that, snaps were hard, but I'm thinking about all the times you needed to hold your baby or get your baby in and out of the car seat or pick baby up from a nap or put baby down during the nap or even holding baby during breastfeeding. So tell me about some of the accommodations you had to make in order to be able to even care for your baby.
Some of the accommodations I had to make, it was definitely hard. I couldn't care for my baby by myself alone. I had to always be around someone. My husband tried to switch his work to work from home as much as he could. He did have to go into the office, so we hired, babysitters to come and help me. It was just tough because that's very expensive to have someone around for the whole day. Getting my baby down to nap, I have eventually figured out that I can do the side lying. If I just hop onto the floor bed with her, then I can just open up, let her feed, and then when she's done, she rolls off, and if she's asleep, I can sneak away, and if she needs the cuddles to stay asleep, I stay. Picking her up, getting her into the car seat, I needed someone to help me getting her out of the car seat, I need someone to help me. I couldn't pick her up. She's now at a place where she can climb, like, I'll tell her, "Hey, climb up." It was hard for her to accept in the beginning that mommy can't pick you up. I would get down on the floor and offer her a hug, and she would very like crying, trying to climb up on my leg and then try to climb on my body. And she just it was just really, really hard for her. I did have the helpers that I had. I would put on the carrier. They would help me put the carrier. It was like a seated carrier, the hip seat kind of carrier, and they would put her on that seat and then help me get my arms in and then buckle it for me, just so that she could feel like she was being held. So that helped a lot. And she was doing a lot of contact naps that way while she would fall asleep on me that way. Because it was hard for her to fall asleep when someone else was in the house, like another person around. And my husband was taking on a lot of the cooking and cleaning. We were also ordering meals to be delivered ready made, like Feast and Fettle, which I think you have used as well. And cleaning, we did what we could. We anything else that wasn't crucial to the daily survival, we just let it go. We didn't fold laundry. We just lived out of the clean laundry basket. And
Yeah, I barely fold laundry
yeah,
to
so
this
all
day.
sorts of things. And like when it got too expensive to hire a babysitter to be with me all the time, I started networking with more mom friends and just letting them know, like, when my husband goes into work, can we come hang out with you? for the day. And a lot of them were just happy to have the company. And the kids liked playing together. So that worked out really well. And this whole experience has made me realize, we really need to live in community. During this motherhood thing alone and thinking that we could just be alone in our homes, entertaining our babies, and then toddlers by ourselves while trying to get the cooking and cleaning done. Like I will say, from when she was 5 months old up to 8 months old, when my wrists were good, I was doing all that stuff and I was feeling on top of the world. I was like, look at me caring for my baby by myself. I can hold her while I'm cooking and cleaning and preparing food and doing dishes and laundry and sweeping and vacuuming. And I was like, I felt like super mom, like I could do it all. And then the wrist went, and I'm like, oh man, I can't do anything by myself. I'm having trouble dressing myself, putting on socks. I cannot clip my own nails. My husband was brushing my hair and washing my hair. Like, but the thing is, your babies are paying attention. Like now, she helps me put on. Well, she tries to help me put on my socks, but she's pretty good at least putting my slipper on my foot. It's kind of cute. She always comes over and tries to put my slipper on the feet. She's noticing and she's helping. I ask her if she can carry things for me. She's a very strong, tiny child, and it's amazing what she can carry. Even my husband's like, how did she pick that up? That is like, it weighs as much as her. I'm like, I don't know. She's very determined little kid too, because she started by moving things that she wanted to pick up and move places. And now I'm like, she's very strong. Let me see if she can carry this for me. And she loves helping.
Yeah, and kids, they like doing real help. They know the difference between getting a pretend task to keep them busy and actually having a real task that helps contribute to the family. And, I think when somebody is in a situation in which they need the help, you're more likely to help build that in your kids because you don't have as much of a choice.
Yeah, I will say too, like I've had to definitely tap into other skills because like in the days when I struggle with various things, I present to my husband, what would you have done in this scenario? And he's like, well, I just would have picked her up and moved her. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. When I was trying to manage it alone during the day without a sitter and without going somewhere for help. And I was like, yeah, I can't do that. I rely on her cooperating and being willing to do the thing I'm asking her to do. And when she wants to be a toddler and be like, nope, I'm going to do this other thing, I am just trapped. I am stuck. If she wants to start climbing the outside banister of the stairs, because we already have the gate at the actual stairs, I cannot just get her down. All sorts of things that she's trying to get herself into. I cannot just scoop her up and be like, no, or grab her hand, because she will pull hard, or she'll do that thing where if I try to grab her hand, then she'll just decide to flop down on the ground and be like, ah, no. And you're like, okay, that's going to hurt my wrist a whole ton. I'm not going to do that. And so I had to really figure out how to convince my child to want to cooperate. And the hardest phase was the diaper changes are like wrestling an alligator. I could do it if it was just a pee diaper. But when it was a poop diaper and if it was very messy, it was hard that if she wanted to kick into it and then kick, roll, and run, because I couldn't get her onto the changing table, I had to bring the changing pad down to the floor and convince her to come and lay on it because I couldn't pick her up and put her on it. And if she decided to kick into it and then roll and run, I'm just like, oh, great. Ugh. So that's when I realized I need help. Like at first it was I need help in case she has a poop, because that I cannot do with this alligator fighting you down. Um, Now she's cooperating. I can do any diaper change if I'm left alone. When we were going to different mom friends' houses for the day, she'd be so many days out of the house and then just exhausted, and she was just having a hard time adjusting to that. So then I started finding mother's helper, like kids after school, so that I would be at a friend's house until I could get a mother's helper at home. And then that way, my baby would have some time to just be at home with her toys and a little more relaxed atmosphere without other kids. And it was hard for her to nap in other people's places. She would often like I do the carrier. She would fall asleep on that on me, and then I would just lay back on the couch somewhere. But of course, that was hard on my back, and so I was trying, we brought like a little her pack and play mattress and put it on the floor in their playroom. When their kid goes down for a nap, I would try to do a side laying feed and lay with her there. But of course, if I had to go to the bathroom, I tried to escape to go to the bathroom, then she fusses and turns and looks for me, and I'm not there, and crying. We've been through.
That sounds so hard, and just being it's one thing if you're having a hard time with your baby and you're just by yourself, and it's another when you're always under the watchful eye of somebody else, even if they're not judging. You, you feel a little more
Yeah, and then,
self-conscious
they
sometimes,
yeah,
at
and then
least
they're
I
like,
do.
I hear her crying. Do I come help? Do I come rescue her? Is she gonna be able to get her back down by herself? Like, and I was really grateful for like a lot of friends. Like, I don't want to ask for help with every little thing. Like, can you open this container for me? Can you open this baby gate for me? Can you open this door for me? Can you lift that bag for me? Can you get her into the high chair for me? Like, it's a lot. It's. I mean, obviously they know about getting her in and out of the high chair for me, sure, but like some of them are just really great. They know that I have the wrist problem and they're really like, "Oh, do you need help opening that container?" And sometimes I can open the container by myself with great effort and, but if I open the container by myself now, that maybe means that I can't undress myself at night and I get myself into my PJs because I've used up what little I have in that day. Um, so like the ones who are asking me all the time in what they are afraid is an annoying way. And I'm like, I really appreciate you asking because I'm afraid to be annoying you to ask for all these little things that I need sort of constantly.
I know, that would be hard. And have you encountered people who see you and think this person is completely able-bodied? Why does she need so much help? Or are most people pretty understanding?
The friends that know, because I don't present as disabled, and I was wearing a wrist brace for a long time, and like everywhere I went at the library lab sits, everyone knew I couldn't do anything. So people would be asking, like, "Oh yeah, did you need help?" Then I stopped wearing the wrist brace because the wrist brace was actually hurting it more because the compression, and I needed the mobility because the wrist brace was creating the immobility, which caused the adhesions. And so then, like, just one problem solving that problem leads to more problems. So I stopped wearing the wrist braces, and it was getting better. I needed the mobility. I had to work within the range that I had, and then I could push the range a little bit more through going to OT. I was finding how much more I could push it. When I stopped wearing the wrist braces, everyone's like, "Oh, your wrists are all better." I'm like, "Not actually. I've stopped wearing the wrist braces because it's actually hurting more to wear them." And the ones I see every week, because we have a regular set play date with them now, they know I still need help. They check in with me. How is you're having a good week, a good day, bad week. And I let them know how it's feeling that day, my progress that week, what I could do, what I found that I still can't do. And yeah, when I'm just out, nobody realizes I can't just pick up my baby. Like I was at the Discovery Museum with my child, and there was, a play group too. Like some kid is going to careen at her with the tricycle, and I can't bend it, but I could hold my hand out, and they could run into my hand straight on towards my arm, and with no problem. And if I had to stop, someone running into my baby, like she was just starting to walk, like she was taking her first steps there, and I was holding her hand with my good hand, and someone was coming at her, and I was like, "Well, I have to prevent her from getting run over." And I did not know how that would go, but there wasn't really a choice. And then now I'm just now that she can walk on her own, now I just use my body to block when I see someone getting a little close with the tricycle. But then when she was just starting to take some steps and she was holding onto my hand and trying to go, I was like, I got the like good hand holding her and the one bad hand. Here we go. Let's see what happens. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So you said she's still breastfeeding, a few times a day?
yeah.
And, is it on demand, or do you kinda keep it to set times now that she's a little older?
It's on demand. She pretty much, upon waking, will do a feed, and then after breakfast, after like an hour or so after breakfast, she'll do a feed, and then it's the afternoon that gets the most variable because that is when I go to work. I go into the office for a half day, one day a week. So my husband says when I'm gone, she doesn't always need milk, which is good. It's not overproducing anymore, so I don't always get the ability to pump something extra to leave them with before I go, because she wants to do that feed before I go, so then I have nothing more to pump after she feeds. But that's fine because we have less pump and bottle parts to wash. But then if she does need milk while on the way, my husband does have to go into the freezer bag, which is fine because the one I pump at work is the freezer bag to, for the next week. But yeah, the afternoon gets the most variable when she'll feed again in the afternoon. Again, when she's stressed too, she'll want to nurse. Like if someone is taking toys from her and she just needs to come to mama. Um, Sometimes she'll nurse several times in an afternoon, and sometimes she won't for a long time until close to dinner. We have tried, like my husband said, well, when she wants milk, just distract her with food or water. And we've done that, and sometimes that works. But now she's hit a spot where if she wants milk, we ask her if she wants food, and we try to give her food, she will just scream and kick and flail in her high chair until I give her milk first, and then she will eat her food. So we've tried filling her up with food first, and it sort of worked in the 1 year mark, but now she's just like, no, when I want milk now. And then once I've had my fill of milk, I will eat the food. And we think that the milk is filling her up and she won't eat much food,
Right.
but it's completely variable. Like sometimes she will have um, a bunch of milk and a bunch of food. Sometimes she'll have a bunch of milk and very little food. And we're like, oh, she filled up on milk. But then sometimes she'll have no milk and just a little teeny tiny bit of food. Sometimes she'll have no milk and a whole ton of food, like three adult servings worth. And we're like, whoa.
Yeah, toddlers eating is very variable. And I think we were talking about this previously that often if a baby who breastfeeds beyond a year is not eating as many solids as what a provider might like, they give advice to have them wean, but weaning does not make babies eat more. And breast milk changes composition to meet the needs of a toddler. And so it's highly caloric, it has more fat in it, and that helps with the developing brain. And sometimes, if babies who are still breastfeeding frequently are told to wean, they drop off their curve because now they're still eating the same amount of solids, but they're getting way less breast milk.
Yeah, and there are days that my toddler will have a fixation on one food, and my husband's
Mhm.
like, "She will only eat one food at a time." Or some days
Mhm.
only like, if she has a whole day of only eating strawberries, I know it's okay because she's still getting breast milk, so she's getting that other nutrition. And there are other days that she'll have everything on her plate and more, and, like, we just keep giving her everything. And, like, when it's leftovers night.
I was just gonna say I just interviewed a pediatric, dietitian a registered dietitian who focuses on pediatrics, and she said exactly that, that what we need to be thinking about in terms of food groups and having varied nutrition with our toddlers and even our children is how are they doing in a week or two's time with variety and different food groups, not every single meal of every single day. Because as adults, I might feel like a salad one day and it might not have any protein in it, but at breakfast I had eggs. And so throughout the day, you're getting a variety of nutritious foods, but it doesn't have to be all the food groups at every meal. And I think sometimes when we have children, we feel so responsible for making sure that they get nutritious foods, that we lose sight of it being a bigger picture situation and not a micro situation of needing to micromanage every meal or snack.
Yeah, and I can't force her to eat anything she doesn't wanna eat. She'll close her mouth and
Exactly. No.
or she'll
Right.
like, and of course,
Yeah, kids are in charge of what goes in their bodies and what goes out. We can't force potty training and we can't force eating. It's like the 2 things that they maintain complete control over.
right.
And if we can kind of recognize that and say, "Up, we don't have control over this. We can help and guide and offer," a lot of us would be a lot less stressed out, I
Yeah,
think.
like, I try to encourage her to eat some of her food. I'm like, "Oh, can you finish some of this?" And then, and I'll be like, "Oh, if you don't finish it, mommy's gonna eat your food." And then she just grabs it and shoves it in my mouth and like, "Great, here." Like, that strategy backfired.
Yeah, backfired. Yeah, so, as we close out here, are there any, lessons you've learned about breastfeeding or about your situation that you think it's important to highlight beyond just the facts of the situation?
I would say if you're not getting the support that you need from a lactation consultant that the hospital assigns you to, reach out to an IBCLC because the information that they have is current. Like, to just know that warmth and compression are the old protocol and it's really ice and anti-inflammatories, and the compression can cause more inflammation in that area. Just yeah, reach it if it costs a lot more, because your insurance covers the one through the hospital. um, it is worth it. It's you just learn so much more, and the education that they can provide you with and the support. I definitely felt more supported when I was working with the IBCLC, and stick to, like, what you decide and what you want for your family. Don't let anyone tell you that this is not good, this is not right, because they don't know either. We're all always learning, and I say this, like, when my kid is grown, and if when she decides to have a child, at the time there will be more research, and I'm not gonna be like, "Well, back when you were a kid, we did this." I'm just gonna be like, just support whatever it is they're gonna do, and because they will have done the research, and or they will have decided on their parenting preferences or style, and your only job is to support. Don't be the one that's like, well, back in my day we did this, or oh, this is better because, and just support the parent. Don't criticize, just support whatever their goals are and be there. And
Yeah, it's important for both friends and family to be supportive and people who we have hired to help us because as experts, as an IBCLC, A, I don't know everything about everything. And B, I might have some bigger picture knowledge that I can present to you to help somebody understand a cause of their situation or possible solutions to their situation. But in the end, it is not me who is living that life. And so anything I suggest to a client has to be something that they can work into their life or that they feel is meeting their own goals. And it's not my job to put my goals onto a client. It's my job to say, "This is what I'm seeing. This is what might be impacting you negatively. These are things you might be able to do to improve your situation." And then to say, "What do you think about this? Is it doable? Does it seem to be resonating with you?" Because the fact of the matter is, we can talk, 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 and it might not be the thing that the person is really wanting to do. And so it has to be a collaborative relationship, whether it's somebody you've hired, an expert you've hired, or a friend. We have to really make sure that the advice we're giving is A, wanted, and B, actually going to be helpful given the unique circumstances of the
yeah.
person we're talking with. That is so important. Well, I thank you so much for sharing this story. It is such a difficult one. You can read cases of postpartum carpal tunnel in studies, but the studies are always really small, 30 women here, 27 women here, 34 women here. And so although this is something that happens, it's really like, have you met anyone else who has dealt with this at all in all of the baby play groups you've been in and various social gatherings?
A couple of them had the mommy wrist for, like, a couple of weeks up to a couple months at a time. One coworker has had it for, like, 2 years, but she ended up having the underlying, rheumatoid arthritis, and she was the one who told me to reach out and try to get, a rheumatologist, and so that's how I pushed for that, but it turns out my that's not the issue with my body. And a lot of the providers, when I told them what was happening, they asked if I had any of these carpal tunnel or tendonitis in pregnancy, because they said it's very common to see it in pregnancy. I'm like, "No, never." And it wasn't immediately postpartum. It was, like 2.5 months when she was 2.5 months old.
Yeah, some of the studies I see say the mean time of developing it is 3.5 weeks, lasting about 6.5 months.
Oh.
And they start to resolve about 14 days after weaning. So I would be interested, but it takes up to a month for it to really go away. So I'd be interested to see once you do wean if it does resolve or if it's not related to the lactation at all, and the timing has just been, um,
Yeah, because then I wonder, what about those 3
coincidental.
months when I was perfectly fine between when it was both wrists and really bad
Yeah.
and then the one wrist going? And if it, like, why is one fine and one bad right now? But the fact
Did your oversupply when did your oversupply start to resolve?
oh, that's a good question.
Did that correspond with that timing when you felt better?
It's possible. Let me think about this. The oversupply, it took me 2 weeks to get into oversupply, and I remember saying to myself, "It's taking, like, 2 months to correct the oversupply." So, no, I think my oversupply correction was, let's see, 2 weeks plus 2 months, I guess right around that time. I guess the timing worked out that as my wrists were bad, I wasn't pumping as much anymore because that would have hurt to be I remember there was a time when I was still pumping a little bit, but I was really trying to taper off the pumping, like, I would only pump as much as it was still raining out. As soon as it was like, pump, drop, I just turned off the pump. But when it, because like my oversupply was so forceful. When I would remove the nursing pad, it would be like geyser boob or Niagara Falls nipples. Like I would go to lean down to grab my baby to feed her, and it would just be raining out into her mouth, and she'd be laying in the bassinet like with her mouth open and it's just dropping right into her mouth. Or like I'd be trying to latch her and it's just spraying in her face all over, and her entire head is slippery and neck and body is all slippery. I'm trying to get her on, and I would pump just to, I wasn't pumping to empty. I was just pumping until it stopped like waterfall.
Right.
Yeah.
Spraying. Yeah. So then tell me, when did you notice the oversupply and when did the inflammation of the wrist start?
I might have to ask my husband to see if he remembers. Because we do know like when I was pumping so much extra, like 1 to 3 bags into the freezer and 3 to 5 bottles out within the fridge per day extra beyond what I was feeding her. Then it came down to try to keep it under 5 bottles in the fridge, just three, and try to keep it under 1 to 2 freezer bags in a day. And then I remember I gave away all my January bags in last year.
This year
The
or
first
of
two,
her
yeah,
first January? Last year. Okay. And when did the wrist pain start?
mid-January. So, like, in February or March, I gave away all my January bags because, like, I was trying to reuse them up within 6 months. I know the deep freezer can go to a year, but and we did have a separate storage freezer downstairs. But I do remember as soon as I gave away those bags, we started going into the freezer bags, and my husband was like, "Oh, just as you gave away a bunch, now we're actually going into the freezer and using the bags instead of adding like tons per day. We're now taking."
So your milk supply started to reduce around the same time that the pain began?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's a connection. Inflammation, is a result of lymph, and lymph gets stimulated more with breastfeeding. It's very, very, very interesting. Um,
Right. But I wasn't in oversupply the whole time. And I would imagine if I was in oversupply the whole time and still pumping a bunch more, that I would have more. But then again, I did have my clogged ducts were coming down. But I think it was because I was taking the ibuprofen, the anti-inflammatories so much, and I was pushing past the pain with the wrist that I didn't know I had because I was already taking anti-inflammatories, that the wrist probably got so much worse beyond what I was feeling. And then by the time I felt it, it was like, "Oh."
I just wonder if somebody had helped you with the oversupply earlier on, would that wrist pain have developed? Bless you. Yeah, it's an interesting question, and we can't go back and relive it and replay it, but
Yeah, I think that's
I wonder. I would love to talk to you again after weaning to see how everything resolves and to see if that is the case for you, given that there are so few studies about this situation.
Yeah. I mean, definitely we can't know, like, in hindsight, but,
Right,
hearing from other
exactly.
people's experiences because it's not like the courses taught me. I had a very different
No,
experience. I was like, "Well, if
you
we don't
did.
know and hear from other people, how would we know?" I remember in pregnancy, everyone's like,
Right.
"Oh, don't listen to other people's birth stories. It'll just traumatize you." I'm like, "Actually, I would like to hear everybody's the good, the bad, because I rather know what could happen." And they're like, "No, it's just gonna scare you." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I wanna hear what could happen and what happened on the other end. Clearly, they're alive and okay." So
Yeah, and it's not people can present their birth story, even if it's traumatic in a way that traumatizes other people. You can also prevent that same birth story in a way that says, this was my experience. In hindsight, this is what I have learned about what contributed to that experience. And it doesn't mean that this is going to be your experience. Would you like to hear it? And there's a way to do that without bombarding people with horror stories and also having openness about our situation so that when somebody is experiencing something they didn't expect, they don't feel alone. And it's the same with breastfeeding.
yeah, I remember with
So
after I had my baby, I was saying to a lot of my friends who have kids, I was like, "Why didn't you warn me?" And they were like, "Oh, if we told you, you wouldn't have done it." And then I was telling that to some of my other friends who are, family planning and want to have kids, and I've been telling them about my experience, and I mentioned to them, like, "No one told me this stuff." And I've been asking my friends, why didn't you warn me?" And they said to me, "Don't worry, Sharon, we don't feel that way about you. We feel that you are adequately preparing us."
that's so great. Well, thank you so much for taking so much time to share your story with me today. I think this is an important one to get out there, and I really, really hope that the pain resolves soon, and that you're not dealing with it for much longer, or that you at least have more times of pain-free times than you do of flare-ups.
Yeah, I'm getting there. So there's a lot of hope at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, great.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.